Breaking the Stigma is sponsored by Perlmutter Cancer Center at NYU Langone Health.
Mental illness is extremely personal, not something many people open up about, but talking about the struggle and recovery can help open doors and break the stigma. That's what our CBS2 anchor and dear friend Cindy Hsu is doing.
Dana Tyler spent some time talking with Cindy about her personal mental health journey, how she found help, what she's doing to live her best life. And a warning tonight, sensitive topics involving mental illness and suicide will be discussed. But we believe by Cindy sharing her story, it will help others know that they are not alone.
You have decided to talk about something very personal. And the timing is no coincidence. In perspective of what we're all going through.
Well, mental health awareness, and also what we've all been through for the last year and a half with COVID, and everyone feeling vulnerable and isolated. So I felt this was a good time to share my story.
Your story, a lot of people wouldn't have the courage to do this, but you feel it's important, and we're going to go back a few years, which tells us one thing. Having a story dealing with mental illness, depression, anxiety, whatever you want to call it, comes anytime to anybody. He doesn't pick a season. So explain how you led into it and what made you realize there was a problem.
I didn't really, well, it was in 2015, and I think the first sign to me was having trouble doing my regular job, everyday reporting, going out in the field. It's very fast-paced. My mind was moving slower, and it was just harder to do just the simple job I'd been doing for more than 20 years. And then I remember one story, simple story, but my heart started beating so hard in the truck, in the news truck, that I told my camera person, Mike Muskoff, I said, I have to go to the emergency room. And he took me immediately to the emergency room, and you know, they did all sorts of tests and breathing, and the doctors couldn't find anything wrong other than, you know, high anxiety, which was it's kind of frustrating because you feel like you don't know what's wrong, and there was really nothing to do about it. I wasn't told there's anything to help with that or what caused it, other than, I don't know, sometimes I feel like the stress of our job and the content of our job, you know, murders, talking to children, you know, who've lost family, or just anything. It gets to you after many years, and I think that was just one of the things that was making my heart race.
Right. The pressures of the job. Yeah. It's the story that, you know, we feel what is happening to the people we interview. But there's a time pressure and a time management to get these stories on every day, which includes the interviewing and the writing and the editing and whatever challenges there are of that. And I guess in our heads, approval, be it a boss, be it the audience, be it yourself, you don't want to let down your photographer. How much, too, was that part of the pressure of, can I get this done? Can I get this done?
I think it all whirls into one big tornado. And what happened was I learned that I was in depression. I had depression. And the thing I've learned is that it's not one thing that causes it. It's like a perfect storm of many, many things. And it's different for every person.
Did you, like when you went to work that day, the day before, a week before, what were you feeling like then? I mean, it wasn't a light switch.
Right, no. I think it was, looking back now, I was just anxious. You know, maybe not looking forward. You know, you know me, Dana. We've known each other for a million years, and I'm like the happy person at work.
Always.
So to not feel positive and just to feel very different than you normally do. That was one thing, but it wasn't so much that I felt like, oh, I need to get help. It just, you know, I'd never experienced feeling like this, but I knew nothing about it. So you just keep pushing on and doing your job and being a mother and trying to keep your life together.
Did you think asking for help was like, no, that's...
You know, I didn't even consider it because first of all, I didn't know that I was suffering from depression. I had no idea. And it wasn't until, I mean, it was a process, you know, from the emergency room to I think it was several weeks later, just continuing to do your job, but anxious inside, but trying not to show it.
Were you able to do that? I have to say, I don't remember.
Yeah.
But you have the ability, you do isolate yourself at work,
right,
if you want to, right? So they're your coworkers, your teenage daughter. How did you deal with that? Does a fake face you're putting on, or
I think
crying when you can, running somewhere private?
I think it's just dealing with it by yourself, as I have to say, can be a cultural thing as well. You know, coming from an Asian family, we don't talk about things like this. You don't sit there and say, I'm not feeling well, I feel down. It's more like you don't want to be a burden to anybody, so you just kind of keep it inside. My daughter was 11 years old at the time, so, you know, she and I, of course, aren't going to talk about it. I'm not going to share with my child what I'm going through. But what happened was, I believe weeks after that first visit in the emergency room, I just kept going back to work, and then one day, one of my colleagues, she said, are you okay? And it must have shown on my face because you keep trying to hide it, and I think I'm pretty good at it. Yeah, I'm pretty good at putting on the happy face. But I guess she saw, and she said, can I talk to you in the hallway? And we went to the hallway, and she said, are you okay? I said, no. And that was the first time I actually let down the wall. And that's when she said, you need to take some time off. And I said, yes. And I left work. And I left work for months. And no one knew why. And after that, I did go to, you know, I asked my mom to come. I'm a single mom, so it's just me and Rosie, and I started feeling like I was struggling at home as well. Not being the good mom that I normally am, you know, wanting to go home and just go to sleep and pull the shades down, get in bed.
Stay there.
Yeah.
24/7 if you could.
Exactly. So she came to stay with me, and we didn't know what it was, you know. We still weren't open about talking about it. It's just that I needed a break from work, wasn't feeling that well, and then I just kept getting worse.
So, doctor, psychiatrist, psychologist, somebody, I mean...
I had talked to a doctor. I mean, it helped a little bit, but I still was bottom line, I attempted suicide weeks after I had left work.
You were by yourself?
I was by myself. My daughter was away at camp. My mother was at a museum, you know, so I knew I was by myself. And I attempted, and the hope was I wouldn't wake up. And my mother found me, and I have no memory of her finding me or anything like that. My first memory is waking up in the emergency room and realizing I wasn't dead.
Were you relieved, or were you sad, confused?
I think I was confused. I was confused. Probably embarrassed, you know, because it's something I hadn't talked to with family. And then stayed in the emergency room to come back to life. Went to a hospital to physically get better. And then I ended up going to a psychiatric hospital. And that's where I really found the help I need.
Yeah.
They have psychiatrists and group meetings where you're with other people who have suffered the same issues you suffer from, and you can talk openly. I can't tell you how much it helped to have group meetings where you're sitting next to people who say, I know how that feels.
Because, I mean, when you think you were alone throughout this, even the little bits of information you might have given, but you're giving that to people who, as much as they can have compassion and empathy, do they really know? And whether or not they do, nobody understands me, and I'm going to just soldier through this. So what was it about sitting next to a person who's saying, hello, my name is, and I have X, Y, or Z? How did that make you feel? Better?
Made me feel better. Made me feel like you're not alone. There's this whole group of people who are going through some sort of mental health issue, whether it's depression or whatever the issue is, and most of them had attempted suicide as well. It's just a safe place. It's a safe place that you feel like you're not judged, and you can open up, and you're in a place where you can get help. What happens with depression for me, it's like a black cloud takes over your brain, and it tells you that the world would be better without you. And for me, it told me my daughter would be better living like with my brother, who has a wife and 3 kids and more of a traditional family versus just me and Rosie. But so that's what depression does. It kind of warps what you're thinking, and it really makes you believe that if you are gone, it will be better for the people you love. So that's what it felt like.
Did you feel that, even though you felt it would be better, that she would have a hole in her heart, and that the pain, did you not think you were worth it? Your life was worth it to her. How did you reconcile the pain that she would live with?
I think the power of depression that tells you adamantly, your daughter will be better off. So, yes, you think there will be a little pain, obviously, but you're not thinking straight. So you're thinking, my child will have a better life. Without this messed up mom who has depression and can't climb out of a dark hole. That's what it feels like, you're in a dark hole.
What about, I'm wondering, we're on TV. We're telling stories that are of all ranges, but just on the side of it is, we're there, our faces, the presentation is important, so we give the story. In a sense, you can hide behind that. But obviously that just gave way. Did that play into it, of what the responsibilities of your job, or you were failing, or you were becoming transparent?
Well, I think part of it is we're in a very competitive business. And I think I always had in the back of mind the fear of losing my job if I wasn't at 100%. And if I lose my job, I cannot take care of my child. And then everything falls apart. And that's what was happening. It's a fear, which I think is the depression, that creates this fear in the back of your head about everything falling to pieces. So that was the way that I think the pressure of work connected.
You spoke earlier about being Asian American and talking about it, not talking about it. You're involved in the Asian American community. A sense of responsibility that you have, I know. And I'm wondering, too, about that and being open to them. How big a decision that was. I mean, you have begun to share this before this interview here. When was it that you realized, I've got to say something?
I decided on a panel. It was for, it is an Asian American journalist panel, to share this story because we were talking about, I don't know how to make it through this business, which is tough. And what I found was, when I first opened up, so many people talked to me afterwards about how either they had felt that way or they had a family member who had been through mental illness issues, and it opened a door. It opened a door that is shut right now to so many people. That's one of the reasons I'm talking, because we need to open the door. So then I started to get more involved. Then I started getting involved with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and they have a walk. So I took part in their walk with my daughter and a friend, and that felt amazing to have so many people who were going through the same thing. Whether it's they had gone through depression or someone they knew or a friend, or even how do you handle it when somebody else, you think somebody else might be going through this. And then the next year, they had asked me to, they asked different people to go on stage and hold certain bead colors. And the beads mean, like white beads mean if you lost somebody to suicide, and green means if you've experienced it yourself. And so that was a big thing, to get on that stage and hold those beads up. And to see all those people, it felt like you were doing something. Like you experience something, you go back in your hole, you just keep it a secret. I felt like it didn't really help anyone, because what you learn when you go through this is that so many people are going through it, but they're doing it in secret. After I was in the hospital.
How long were you?
I was in the hospital for, I believe, 2 weeks.
One location, or?
One location, and it's, it's one that's, it's a lockdown. You don't get to go home. You sleep there. No, they take your phone. There's a phone on the wall that you can call, but it's scary. It was scary going in there, and that's one of the reasons I think we need to talk about this. When they said, we think you need to go to a psychiatric hospital, of course, as a journalist, you want to say, okay, well, what's it like there? You can't find any information about what it's like there. You can go on websites and like different hospitals that may be a psychiatric hospital. There are no pictures, there's no description. It's basically you're brought in and you're left there and you have to stay there and you can't just leave, which is really scary. So I was very fortunate to go to a hospital that I feel really helped because of all the experts, the mental health experts, and also all the other people that were there that were going through the same thing were just as helpful.
Was it also that beginning, though, when you're there, you're just alone with all your thoughts, and boy, you can build, I messed up this, I messed up that, I messed up this, I don't think I can do that. That line between beating yourself up and giving yourself, being compassionate, giving yourself permission to love yourself. How was that? I mean, it took those experts to help you to get there. Yeah.
It took the experts to explain that mental health is just as important as physical health, whether it's cancer or diabetes.
Do something immediately, right?
Right. But mental health, no one talks about it. So a lot of people are suffering in silence. So it takes the experts, it takes treatment to get better and to recover, which I'm doing, I've done. And it was medications, it's talk therapy. And I continue to do that. I continue to see a psychiatrist every month. I'm still on medication, and I need that. But I feel great, and I feel so many of us can recover from depression and mental health illnesses.
Did Rosie know, and how did she react?
Rosie did not know. She, again, she was 11 years old, and when I went into the hospital, I would call her from the phone that we were allowed to use sometimes, and we would talk, but I would just tell her that mom's at a place, I'm taking art courses, and because there was therapy, art therapy and music therapy and things like that. And she was so small, she didn't really, ask those probing questions, thank goodness, to tell you the truth. So I just kind of pretended Mommy was away for a little bit. But after I had finished with the hospital, after the hospital, then you go to kind of a step-down program where you continue with the group and you continue with different doctors, but you get to go home.
Yeah.
And that was for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yeah.
In the middle of that, I had asked them, how do I handle this with Rosie? And they said, well, it depends on what your relationship is with your child. It's different for everybody. Well, I've always been a very open parent.
Yeah, you are.
Just lay it out there. And so I got advice from child psychologists about how to tell her. And one day we just sat down, and she didn't even ask that many. I said, do you have any questions? And she said, no. And it was weird. I mean, I think sometimes as an adult you think it's going to be, your child's going to have more questions than they actually do. And then I did also say, if you want to talk to an expert about this, or if there's any time you have questions. And they also told me to make sure that she knows that my illness is not her job to cure. That I have a team of doctors, and I have so many people working to make Mommy better, that your job is just to be a kid, and we're getting better.
As she's gotten older, though,
She's become an advocate.
no kidding. No, I'm not surprised. She's your daughter. Of course she has.
I mean, she's gone on the walks with me. She saw me hold those beads up. I share with her anything that I'm doing as far as talking about this. Now she's 17 years old. She's in high school, and she's been dealing with this for the last 5 years. She has now been able to help her friends, her teen friends, because talk about angst and issues, teenagers, and especially during this time. So she's now the listener, because I think one of the biggest things you can do is listen, and listen carefully to people's pain, and don't just swat it away. So she is now a strong mental health advocate.
You must be so proud. Another reason to be so proud of her.
I'm proud of her, and I just am so grateful that she's my daughter.
Yeah. I want to get back to also just being diagnosed, and some will feel, oh, what a stigma. I've got depression. I can't let anybody know. It's not a stigma.
It's not, but when you're going through, you feel like it is. When I was in the step-down program, so I still was gone from work. Nobody knew from work what was happening with me. I was just, poof, I'm gone.
I can attest to that.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
I didn't communicate with anybody.
Yeah.
And in the step-down program, these are, we've been through treatment. We're all getting better. We all had a whole workshop on what are we going to say when we go back to work. Because none of us are going to go back to work and say, I was going through depression, and I attempted suicide, and no one's going to be honest about that. It took me years to be able to talk about this openly. And it's a growing process, and I just hope that other people will open up as well, because going through mental health issues is not a weakness. You know, if you get a physical ailment, it's not a weakness, and it's the same with mental health. It's just you can't see the scars.
Do you find that when you look at people or when you're having conversations with people, I'm just wondering with what you've learned, it's not being a judge, passing judgment, but is your compassion, your heart is bigger?
I'm more aware.
Yeah.
You know, I listen for, if somebody says to you, I just want to disappear, or I'm such a burden, or I just want to give up, you know, just different things, now a red flag goes up. And I talk more about it, and I want to hear what they have to say, because on the outside, even when I was going through this, I think everything looked fine. You're one of my dearest friends, and you didn't know, you know? And I think most people are really good about hiding it. And that's also what I learned through this, is that no matter how good somebody's life looks from the outside, you know, they could be going through hell inside.
Yeah. You talked about those things too, when you hear certain things. And what about lifestyle too, of, you know, recognizing things, maybe not showing up for work, or not exercising, not eating well because you don't care?
Well, for me, it's different for everybody, but having gone through treatment and being now able to recognize my signs that I'm not doing well, it would be, I stopped exercising. I used to exercise 4 times a week. I was a spinner like crazy. I loved it. I stopped. I wanted to sleep all the time. When you pull the shades, you just want to be in the dark and you want to shut everything out. And you just see big personality changes. Also, you know, one of my favorite things is eating, and I wasn't eating that much. I think I lost something like 20, 30 pounds, and I didn't even know. I mean, it wasn't until I went into the hospital and they weighed me, and oh my gosh. So there are a lot of signs. It's just that we have to be able to recognize them.
Your words, again, it's so worth it, of why you are sharing this. And who are you speaking to?
I'm speaking to everybody. I'm speaking to those who are suffering, but I'm also speaking to the loved ones around those people who are suffering, because we just have to be able to openly talk about this. There is no shame in going through mental illness. There isn't. I think so many people are, and as you said, with COVID especially, some people have been, you know, locked up in their apartment for 1.5 years, seeing nobody, communication down. It's been a really difficult time, and that's why I think it's more important than ever to talk about what can happen if you don't take care of your mental health.
The whispers, people can whisper, whisper, whisper. And when you talked about if you see somebody, someone you love, and that person, you may say, Cindy, is everything okay? And you may, I'm fine, I'm totally fine. But so for that other caring person, don't give up. Don't give up in your help.
Yes.
Because your instincts are almost always right, that there's something wrong.
You're so right. And sometimes you don't realize that until it's too late. So you have to listen to your instincts, and if you think there's a problem, I mean, that's the other thing. There's so many resources. There are also so many resources that are low cost and free, because some people feel like, depending on their socioeconomic status, they won't have access to help. But there is help. There is free help, and there is low-cost help, and you just have to reach out for it. Or if you're the loved one of someone who's going through this, the loved one can reach out.
There's no shame in asking for help.
Yes.
It is the most simplest of sentences, not necessarily by far the easiest thing to do, but there is no shame in asking for help.
Yeah.
How is work now? How has it been?
Work is good, and the other thing is, when I was at my worst, this is what it felt like visually. Like you're in a dark room and you're smushed against a corner, and the darkness is just coming closer and closer and closer, and until you practically disappear. Now, I realize what's important in life, you know, and that there are so many people out there that are trained to help you open your life back up and recover and talk about it, and then be able to talk to other people and help them as well. So work is good.
Your time management, I mean, if you feel there's buttons pushed,
Yeah.
you have a whole different skill set now on how to say, I'll get this done, or
Like
I'll solve this issue with there was no tape. I don't know, whatever.
Right.
Whatever.
It's not that. That's not what life is about. Even if I were to lose my job and to, you know, all these things that you're afraid of happening, it's okay. You know, you're going to survive. And that's when you get better. When you realize that you're going to make it. You're going to get through this with help. But when you're in the midst of a serious depression, you think there is no hope. But there is. When I was leaving treatment, when I was leaving the hospital, you make an emergency plan. So you name 3 people you're going to call if you're having those feelings. So that it's set up, it's like a system set up. I know I will call my mother, I know I'll call this person and this person, so you have a safety net. And I think that's part of the process, is to make sure you have those people in place who can help, or be those people who can help, be somebody's safety net.
It's life, it's a plan, it's okay, depression. No, it's a new part of your life. It's not a cloud, because you're managing it.
Yes.
And even more, I see for you, you're helping others.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say that we didn't say?
Just that I love you. I love Dana Tyler.
Oh, I'm so proud of you.
We are proud of her, and we love her.
Absolutely. And the way she speaks so freely, she's so brave, what she's been through and how she's spreading. She talked about a lot of darkness, but she sure is spreading the light.
She's going to save lives today, Dick.
She will. She will. And you heard Dana and you heard Cindy say, no shame, no shame. If you or someone else you know needs help, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline Network has a 24/7 crisis hotline. That number is 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. You can also text the word TALK to 741-741. We have more resources on our website, CBSNewYork.com.
And then tonight at 7 o'clock on our streaming service, CBSN New York, Cindy and Dana will speak with mental health experts about how to get help, where to start, and treating mental health like any other illnesses. To watch, just go to our website, CBSNewYork.com, on your computer or on your phone, and it will be right there for you. That's on CBSN New York at 7 p.m. CBS 2 News at 6 is right after this break.